Welcome to the earthvox podcast. The earthvox podcast. earthvox podcast.
And we're streaming live on YouTube and Twitch and X.com, my favorite. I was thinking this morning about the website situation. My good friend, 404 Missing Link, my former co-host, that was his department. He's very tech savvy, so he ran the website. And it's really actually easy to run a website with minimal tech savvy. You just have to pay. Like everything else, like this stream. You gotta pay. You gotta pay if you want to do cool things like stream to multiple platforms and save your videos and edit your videos. And I can't remember how to get rid of my overlay. Stop. Is that it? There it is. Wow. I really do invest time figuring out how to work through these problems. And I just don't know if I want to spend a bunch of money, $12 a month, $50 a month, $20 a month to host a website, because what are we really accomplishing with a website that we aren't already accomplishing with these excellent social media platforms that we have? I mean, you're not watching this video on a website. You're not listening to this podcast on a website. I don't need you to contact me through my website. You can just send an email to the real earthvox at protonmail.com and boom. Or you can hit me up on Discord. I'm earthvox there as well. I'm at earthvox on X. I'm earthvox on Twitch. What do I need a website for? I mean, honestly, how much time do you actually spend on a website ever? I mean, you go to platforms now. And X is becoming a great platform. I hear people badmouth it, but also people are never happy with anything, are they? I mean, rarely. People are constantly in pursuit of the perfect at the expense of the good, unfortunately. What do you think about the new backdrop, by the way? It's a little wonky, but it's pretty impressive. One of the many things I pay for. So make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the show, follow the channel, and share it as often as you possibly can. I don't know how long we're going today. There's plenty to talk about, although I wouldn't call it exhaustive. I try not to cover all of the things that everyone is covering, because some of the things that I find to be very popular during the week, I don't think are particularly interesting. But all the winning is fun. All of the confirmations going through are fun. All of the pathetic resistance from the left is also pretty fun. But if a story doesn't pique my curiosity or my interest or inspire me, I skip over it. I don't want anything to feel forced here. But I do want to see more of Donald Trump inflicting misery upon the left, making decrees, and it's hard to argue with. I want to argue. I do. I don't want to be in the bag for Trump on everything. I want to be skeptical. It's good to be, what do they call it? Healthy skepticism. Because we think Trump is the guy. We're all excited. We should all be excited that he's the president. He's in control. He's doing things, and the media gives constant resistance. They won't give him credit for anything. But they were perfectly happy covering for cadaverous Joe Biden. They weren't interested in anything that Biden was doing or wasn't doing. But they lose their minds over everything that Donald Trump is doing. And for me, the worst part of that is that they won't acknowledge that anything that he's doing is good. And it's effectively making 70 million people that voted for Kamala Harris lose their insanity a little bit at a time. And I'm just here to help with that, because I find nothing to be more satisfying after we suffered through the last 4 years of what we've suffered through and the weaponization basically of our government against us, which I have a lot to say later on if I'm going to stick to my show notes, which I really should. But I think what I really want to see from Donald Trump next is I would like a decree from Donald Trump that Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg must fight each other as they initially agreed upon. And I really want the outcome to be like gangland initiation right. Because Zuck wants to be on the team now. 4 or 5 years ago, he was spending what was it, $400 million to fortify the election against Donald Trump in favor of Joe Biden. Now he wants to be buddies. And Elon Musk is like the big brother. And remember, they had that agreement. They were trash talking each other online. Hey, we're going to throw down. Let's fight in the octagon and do some jujitsu. So I had Grok, which I guess recently, I'm not sure how recently, but there's a Grok app now. And I got to tell you, it's the shortcomings are obvious when it comes to AI, as I talked about last week, but it's pretty fun. It's pretty fun to play with. And so I asked Grok, when are Elon and Zuck going to fight? And he had this to say, he or it, I suppose. As of now, there's no confirmed date or clear indication that a fight between Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg will actually happen. The idea first popped up in June 2023 when Musk tweeted he was, quote, up for a cage match with Zuckerberg, who responded on Instagram with, quote, send me location. Since then, it's been more of a public back and forth than a serious plan. And then Elon was having shoulder problems, and then Zuckerberg had something with his ACL, and they all kind of stopped talking about it. Here's what I think really happened. And it kind of ties in with last week's conversation about Ashley St. Clair and the sensation that was her having Elon Musk's baby, allegedly. These people are the CEOs of massive companies who are beholden to the shareholders and the board of directors. Now, you've been listening to this show for a while, and you know my opinion on the stock market and the Wall Street system and how stupid it is. For reasons like Elon and Zuckerberg can't have a public cage match, because what would that do to the stock price after said cage match? It's really pathetic. Like, oh, Zuckerberg lost to Elon Musk in this pathetic old guys duking it out pissing match, and now our share price has dropped 1% or 0.1%, or we've lost 10 cents on our stock price. And that can't happen, because it's the law that CEOs have to act in the interest of the shareholders, and they have to operate the company in the interest of the shareholders. And creating shareholder value is the utmost, it's of the utmost importance at all times. So damn the customers and damn the employees. Damn the vendors. It's all about the shareholders. It's all about, oh, this just makes me angry. It's all about the people that do literally nothing for the company, but maybe throw their money at it and then pipe up when they have an issue with the things that are going on. So, no cage match between Elon and Zuck, and that's why I think Trump he's got to he's got to intervene. He's got to intervene and make it happen because it's the will of the people. I'd like to do a poll. I want to know. Comment on this video. How bad, on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad do you want to see Elon and Zuck throw down? And make it a tag team. Bring Jack Dorsey in. Bring in Adam Schiff, Keir Starmer. I wanted to actually look up. This is one of the things that I just kind of ran out of time on. What exactly goes into sanctioning an individual? Because that's something I would really like to see happen, especially on the topic of George Soros, because everybody's so mad about billionaires being involved in politics now. It wasn't an issue when it was Joe Biden being literally controlled by billionaires and special interests, likely trillionaires. We don't ever talk about those people because those people have enough money to make sure that their name is never mentioned in print or media of any kind. Yeah, come on there. I owe conspiracy theorists. Sure, give me a break. They're out there. You know it. You know it, and I know it. We don't even know what happened to the gold in Fort Knox. That's been a thing. You know, whatever. It's all just rumors. It's all rumors and distraction from real important stuff like this comedy video that I have for you.
Your name is James Bond and you have encounters with the police, it's a good idea to have your ID with you.
So he's flashing light on my face and he goes,
You. And I'm like, yes, sir. He's like,
What's your name?
tell me your name.
When he got to me, I'm like, shit.
oh shit, I'm about to die. So I tell him, James. And he says, do you got a last name there, James? And I said, Bond.
James Bond.
James Bond.
My name James Bond.
And they'll just think I'm a cocky little teenager giving them some flack.
And so he reached through the window of the car and grabbed me by my shirt and said, you fucked with the wrong guy on the wrong day. And proceeded to pull me through the window of the car.
He looked at me like, I'm going to give you one more chance to tell me the truth.
I'm telling the guy, please, 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 my name really is James Bond.
My name is James Bond.
Man, my name James Bond.
That right there was enough to get the guy to draw down on me. Up from the holster and right in my face. And he's like, you're right, and I'm Donald fucking Duck. Get on the ground, get on the ground. He sort of calmed down, had me stand at the back of the car, went back to his car, ran my driver's license, came back and said, that's a cool name, son. And went ahead and let me go.
I did get convicted of that. Do you believe that? I did get convicted of that because the judge said that I was obstructing the police officer from doing his job by me saying my name in a jokingly manner. I looked at the judge like, are you serious? How can I say, James Bond in a jokingly manner? I just said my name. And yeah, I had to do like 60 days in the county jail for that.
That's bad representation right there. That's what that is. It's really pathetic and sad. And it's funny to hear the stories. Don't get me wrong. That's why I brought it up. But show me in the law, judge, where saying your name in a jokingly manner is punishable by jail time. But this is the problem with the justice system. It's a real big problem. The guy that got pulled out of the car through his window for telling a cop that his name was James Bond? Come on. Who's looking out for those people? This is a problem with the system, and I don't like giving away things for free. I'm reminded of that story from last week that RFK is looking at what people are and aren't allowed to buy with their food stamps. It's very positive. It's very heartening. It's not about controlling people. It's about saving the taxpayers money and keeping our tax dollars away from companies that are willing to hurt us just to make a buck is really what it's about. Like, I've been seeing videos, I think maybe even starting as early as this morning. Or as recently, I mean. There's a really sweet old guy with a great smile talking about how he cooked meals during wartime with lard. He gets out a brick of lard the size of like a, block of cream cheese, and he throws it in his frying pan and melts it all, and then he's throwing potatoes in there and frying them up in the lard and frying eggs in the lard, and this is all like, oh, this was wartime. This was when we used lard when we were on hard times because of food rationing and because of that's because that's what they used to use to cook their food. They cooked it in lard. They cooked it in beef tallow. Then the war ended, and they had all this industrial lubricant left over, and said, "Oh, well, let's call this canola oil, and we'll feed it to the peasants. That way, we can still make a quick buck on all of this lubricant that we didn't use on our war machines. Now that the war is over." But at the same time, that's controlling companies and individuals. And this is the kind of concept that's pulled me off of my sort of anarchistic tendencies. Because I do believe in that level of regulation. And I guess I'm coming out of the closet about it. This is a Sunday morning exclusive. Because if there wasn't government, there would just be corporate tyranny. And right now we have, basically, pre-January 20th, we had both corporate tyranny and government tyranny. And you can argue that we aren't under tyranny, and I say prove it. And what are you going to use to prove it to me? Some news reports? Some CNN segments? Some Wall Street Journal clippings? Okay. That's not enough to convince me, but hey, if it's enough to convince you, have a blast. But if we have a justice system that can inflict misery upon the citizens just because they don't have enough money to afford legal representation, they can't afford to pay a lawyer to appeal a terrible judge's decision. You said your name in a joking manner, and so the judge sentenced you to 60 days in jail. That guy's life is over. I wish I could call him and ask him, how badly was your life ruined because you were exploited by the justice system and corrupt law enforcement and corrupt judges? We need some laws for that. We need some government-sponsored representation. I know we have state-provided attorneys. Clearly, it's not enough when guys are getting sentenced to 60 days in jail because they told a police officer their legal name. Clearly, it's not enough. Because that should never happen. And I don't even care that he's a black guy. All right? And that's not even enough. What do you do? What's the recourse for that? Oh, you're pardoned. Your sentence is commuted. We're not, we throw a little bit of money back. No, that guy lost his job. I don't know if he could get it back. I definitely wish I could get some backstory. It's really something that needs to be rectified. And we got a lot to talk about in terms of justice. Trump hired a pardon czar. a woman named Alice Marie Johnson, who was horribly treated by the Justice Department. Let's see, I'm gonna go out of order here. Alice Marie Johnson, a woman from, here, I'll share the screen so y'all can see it on YouTube and X and Twitch. Alice Marie Johnson, a woman from Memphis, Tennessee, was convicted in 1996 for her involvement in a cocaine trafficking organization. Goodness. She acted as a telephone mule, passing messages between distributors, which was a nonviolent role despite being a first-time offender. She was sentenced to life in prison without parole plus an additional 25 years for being a telephone mule, passing messages between distributors. A life sentence plus an additional 25 years. Who is stepping in for these people? Why doesn't the media make a huge deal out of these obviously unjust rulings? In 2018, after serving 21 years, her case gained national attention when Kim Kardashian advocated for her release, meeting with then President Donald Trump. Remember that? The media dragged Donald Trump for that one too. Oh, he's meeting Kim Kardashian to discuss justice policy. Trump commuted her sentence in June 2018, freeing her from the federal correctional institution in Aliceville, Alabama. 2 years later, in August 2020, he granted her a full pardon, restoring her rights and removing her from probation. Since her release, Johnson has become a prominent advocate for criminal justice reform, speaking out about overly severe sentencing and working to help others in similar situations. On February 20th, 2025, Trump announced her appointment as his pardon czar, a role where she will advise on clemency cases, leveraging her experience to influence policy. Seems like a pretty good deal, right? And this is something I was actually just thinking about because Trump got a lot of flack for the pardons. And then there was the guy that got, I actually saw a transcript of the conversation between the January 6th prisoner who was killed by a police officer during a traffic stop. And it's clear that the man was disturbed and had some kind of PTSD about it, freaked out when he heard that he was going to be arrested again, and said that he was going to kill himself. He had a gun in the car. A bunch of bad decisions were made. I didn't see anything that would indicate to me that he attempted to shoot the police officer. The police officer shot him instead. Tragic. Why are we allowing these things to happen to our people? And what's the solution without regulation? What's the solution without putting new systems in place? There was rumors I remember hearing, I think in 2018 or 2019, Trump was going to appoint, what's his name? The judicial watch guy, Tom Fitton, to be sort of a government-appointed judicial watchdog to identify these miscarriages of justice and bring them into public prominence so that we can see what's going on and so that we can stop these people. The whole system is a disaster. We have to be able to get rid of judges that rule illegally, and we have to do it quickly, and we have to do it without obstruction. If there is a judge, and I don't care if he's a Republican, ruling unfairly against a Democrat or vice versa, if they're not following the law, if they're trying to write law as they go, they need to be removed because we have legislation that creates laws that are to be interpreted by judges, not ignored, not skirted around, not grossly misinterpreted to inflict pain upon people's lives. Like, this is one thing that I don't see in the media enough. Something as simple as being arrested because the cop thought you were the wrong guy. You were arrested and thrown in jail because the cop thought that you were giving him a hard time when you told him that your name was James Bond. Gets a guy 60 days in jail, there's a problem with that. I think maybe we need more than one pardon czar. I think maybe every state needs its own pardon czar. Or maybe we just need AI to take over. Ooh, that's right, I said it. I don't really believe it. I'm afraid of it, actually. I mean, Grok seems nice. But isn't that the way every serial killer story begins? I thought he was real nice. And the neighbors say, no, I never thought he would do anything like that. And then the parents say, he was always such a sweet boy. We never thought he would be capable of anything. We did think it was a little weird about all the house pets that kept dying randomly. But here's a little bit of the, oh no, it was the wrong link. A little bit of the coverage from the media. I thought I had a link. I guess I didn't. Or maybe it just didn't paste in there the way I wanted it to. The headlines, you won't be surprised to learn, have really nothing to do with what happened and more about slamming Trump for doing literally anything. Media missed by the left. Let me share this. And you know what I should do? We'll look at a few of these. Pardons are notches Trump a rare win with clemency advocates. Media missed by the left. Van Jones gives Trump credit for, quote, very good move with, quote, pardon czar pick. Who is Alice Marie Johnson, Trump's newly appointed pardon czar? Trump's, well, from Fox, of course, you can count on. Well, what can you really count on from Fox News? Not much. But when I typed in pardon czar, the headlines were much more pathetic and propagandist. Because the media can't give Donald Trump any credit for doing anything. Which is really funny because Alice Marie Johnson is a woman of color. And the left is supposed to love women of color. But not if they're aligned with Trump, as we've learned over the last many years. They're calling this decision pathetic. This headline from NBC News, in ongoing stunt, Trump names Alice Johnson his pardon czar. I mean, it's a pretty good way to frame it. If you're trying to make everything that Trump does look like a terrible thing. He's pardoning all the criminals. But what did the Biden administration do? Not only was the Biden administration letting all of the criminals out of jail, starting with COVID mandates, he was also importing them from across the border. And there were even rumors, albeit unverified, rumors of the president of Venezuela, Maduro, telling the press that Joe Biden actually invited, specifically, Tren de Aragua gang members to be sent to the United States. Of course, unverified. Let's check with Grok, I suppose. We'll just confirm to see if anything new has come out. Say, did Maduro say Biden asked for Tren de Aragua? Yes, Nicolas Maduro, the socialist leader of Venezuela, has claimed that the Biden administration facilitated the expansion of the Tren de Aragua gang into the United States. Specifically, Maduro stated on February 20th, 2025, during remarks broadcast on the state-run VTV channel, that the Biden administration, through the FBI and DEA, had financed, moved, and directed the Tren de Aragua from Colombia into the U.S. He urged President Donald Trump to request truthful reports from these agencies to see who financed, who moved, who directed the famous Tren de Aragua, who brought it to Colombia, who brought it to the United States, suggesting it was part of a plot linked to the Biden administration to, quote, bring terrorism to Venezuela. These claims were reiterated in subsequent statements, including on February 21st, 2025. So it's as I've expected all along. We'll get into more of that, as I expected all along. Because it's been, I mean, as I said, these are the stories that pique my interest, and they do so because they're very indicative of theories and claims that I've made in the past. And the media isn't covering, I mean, not even the conservative media. It was a blip on the radar. And when I asked Grok last time, you may be interested to know, it was unverified. He told me it was unverified, no evidence, no documentation, no real video. Oh, hey, look at this. Seems verified now. But what's the advantage? What's the benefit to the American people? Tell me, you people who don't think that the government that's been in control for the last 4 years was trying to conduct a controlled demolition of the United States. Tell me what benefits. What benefit do we get from wide open borders and importing active, organized South American gangs? What's the benefit to the American people? Oh, hey, you won't have so much property to worry about. Yeah, sure, Tren de Aragua robbed you of everything that you have, but hey, at least they didn't kill you. Yeah, maybe they raped your wife and children, but at least they're still alive and irreparably scarred for the rest of their existence. These are the people that the globalists installed to run our government. I mean, I didn't vote for them, did you? That's really, I mean, okay, I take it back. I don't really want Trump to decree that Elon and Zuck should fight each other. I'd like him to decree that we're going to have 1 day voting, national holiday. Everybody's got the day off work, no excuses. Voting on paper with results by midnight. Make it happen. Don't make arguments about manpower. I don't care. Create an entire agency, pay them $1 billion, and have them be solely responsible for making sure that all the votes are counted in one night. I saw a crazy post on X about election results from all these different countries and all of their populations. Hundreds of millions of people voting. or maybe hundreds of millions in population. Of course, they all haven't voted. This country counts all the votes in 8 hours. This country counts all the votes in 6 hours. California doesn't count all their votes until 6 weeks. Explain. Make it make sense. This is why I'm really excited for people like Dan Bongino, who is now going to be deputy director of the FBI. And we all thought that he was kind of getting snubbed when he didn't get appointed for Secret Service director. And the headlines following this story are, you guessed it, a bunch more propaganda, as usual. Because nothing Donald Trump does can be good, according to the mainstream media. These people are really the enemies of the people. How is that beneficial to us, mainstream media? How is it beneficial that you attempt to make everyone in the country hate the president? That you can't just be unbiased. You can't just report the facts and let the people interpret it how they will. I want Donald Trump to make news boring again. I want him to make elections honest again. I mean, if Donald Trump could accomplish nothing but those two things in the next 4 years, we'd be looking good for the next 50 years. But today, we have a media that calls Dan Bongino a podcaster when they talk about his appointment to deputy director of the FBI. And his content was really riveting 5 years ago when he was talking about the Russia collusion hoax against Donald Trump and the spying operation and Robert Mueller. And he was very critical of the FBI. So they call him a podcaster. They call him a disgraced Fox News host. And they tell you nothing about what actually qualifies him for the job. Because they want you to believe that Donald Trump is just appointing his friends, his supporters, the people that like him that he likes back. Dan Bongino worked for the NYPD for, I think it was 3 years, not a real long time. But that probably has something to do with the fact that he moved into the Secret Service, where he worked for 12 years, which is why many conservatives, including myself, thought that he would be a great choice for director of the Secret Service. So now Kash Patel and Dan Bongino are number 1 and number 2 at the FBI. And you should be very excited and optimistic about that. Because I might not be a huge fan of Dan Bongino's podcast, but I am kind of a fan of him and the work that he's done and the love that he has for the country. And I'm not really deep into the culture. I don't know a lot of the people in those circles, but I'm feeling pretty good about Dan Bongino. And I don't know, gosh, I'd be really curious to find out if the deputy director needs to be confirmed. Does the deputy director of the FBI have a confirmation hearing? We got some posts. We got some web pages. No, the deputy director of the FBI does not require a confirmation hearing. Interesting. Because I would expect more of the same confirmation circus. With a bunch, that's right, with a bunch of ladies coming out of the woodwork to talk about how horrible Dan Bongino groped them all those years ago. At least they think it was him because they were pretty drunk. Which every leftist. God, isn't it interesting? Isn't it interesting? How as soon as the public gets any indication that a certain behavior will earn them social standing, they're willing to go to any lengths to earn that social standing, including completely brainwashing and harming their kids by turning them trans. I mean, that's how they all jump on the orange man bad. Or why they all jump on the orange man bad bandwagon, how they're all happy to believe that Donald Trump couldn't possibly do anything good for the country. And all of the judges that step up to do any of that stuff, to obstruct any of the Donald Trump agenda, they're all lauded as heroes. And the media doesn't say anything about the legality of their order. It's just, oh, it's stupid Trump getting blocked by judges because what he's doing is totally terrible and inexcusable. And I mean, I think they're hanging themselves. Maybe that's maybe that's a bad way to put it. They're shooting themselves in the foot. They're outing themselves is what they're doing by blocking Doge. So these are what the headlines say. The judge stops Doge, Trump's stupid little agency run by Elon Musk. What's funny is Doge is actually USDS. Remember, United States Digital Services, which was created by Obama to prop up the Obamacare, online sign up debacle. But I wonder, all of these judges, I mean, Trump he's threatened to impeach judges that have been found to rule illegally. I wonder if Trump is using Elon Musk and Doge to compile a list of activist judges. I would love to see all of them be impeached, all of them be removed, and all of them be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. But what happens when that starts going down? Because they're not going to go quietly. And we know the protesters are out there. We know that USAID pushed out all of this money, gave away all of the grants to these non-government organizations who organize all of these protests and fund all of the bot farms on social media. The bottom line is, if these judges are ruling illegally, if they're just making shit up on the fly to stop Trump's agenda, it's against the law. I don't want panic. Because people still trust the media, even though they shouldn't. And when they see Donald Trump's Republican-led Congress impeaching these judges that, may have been, I don't know all of the legal ins and outs. But if Trump tries to impeach a judge that was elected by the voters, it's going to create a lot of blowback. And all it takes is a few congressmen for an impeachment. On the other hand, Trump has had 4 years to prepare for everything that he's now doing. So I'm sure he will work carefully, but the law doesn't matter to the left. And the law doesn't matter to the leftist acolytes. And the law doesn't matter to people like George Soros and the Soros organization. I mean, we're all going to have to start referring to Alex Soros because George Soros is on his way out and little Alex is going to take the reins. I don't know if I brought this up. I think I did. It's been a few months now. But Alex Soros, George Soros' son, is or was engaged and is now married to Huma Abedin, who was Hillary Clinton's chief of staff. We got to ask Grok. Is Alex Soros married? As of the latest available information, Alex Soros is not married, but is engaged. He proposed to Huma Abedin, a former aide to Hillary Clinton, in May 2024. So the strength of Soros persists on the left. But the media only wants to talk about Elon Musk. And they would have you believe that now there is a revolt against Elon Musk and Doge because they reported earlier this week that Doge employees are resigning over restructuring and ultimatum. This aggregation brought to you by vtnews.ai, a useful tool, very transparent in where the reporting is coming from. Here's the summary. More than 20 employees from the Department of Government Efficiency, led by Elon Musk, have resigned. It's funny because the D in USDS used to be digital. Now the D is Doge. So, I mean, this is pretty stupid, but I like stuff like this. If you break down the acronym, it's now, instead of USDS, United States Digital Services, it's now USDOGES, United States Department of Government Efficiency Services, which seems, I think we can do better. We know if there's one thing that our politicians can do well, it's come up with acronyms that are clever at best. So I'll just go to the top of the news summary again. I'm sharing the screen if you're watching on X or YouTube or Twitch, and where you can find the video later. I mean, we also put the audio up on all the podcast platforms. But it reads, more than 20 employees from the Department of Government Efficiency, led by Elon Musk, have resigned, citing that they cannot support actions that compromise public services and sensitive data. Now, before I read the rest, I want to just jump down to these headlines. Former Doge staffer explains her decision to quit. That headline from NPR, from Yahoo Finance. 21 civil servants who worked with Musk's government reform team resign. From Rolling Stone, Doge staffers resign, refusing to dismantle critical public services. Doge workers quit, refused to, quote, dismantle public services on Musk's orders. Now, what's the impression that you pull from those headlines? For me, it was that there was a mutiny and that Elon Musk's team is resigning. How can this be? How could Elon be hiring these people that would just resign and not follow his orders? What is Elon doing that is making his people quit and leave him high and dry? The next line in the news summary. The employees who were part of the United States Digital Service voiced their opposition to Doge's initiatives to cut federal spending and reduce government size, which they claim jeopardize critical systems. These are people that worked at USDS, during Biden, maybe during Trump, maybe during Obama, that resigned after Elon Musk came in and said, we're dismantling all of these public services. The critical part is a matter of opinion. It's a matter of perspective. I'm sure some people think they were critical. The people that were relying on them for employment surely thought they were critical. But these are 21 people. I mean, also like that headline from Yahoo, 21 civil servants. But the other headlines say over 20. I mean, you ought to know by now, if you're not 12, that when they say, oh, it's over 40 different, well, that means 41. And, under 40 means 39, right? Like, remember from all those, from all the like infomercials, or even the no, was it Sinead O'Connor? I will remember you for less than $1 a day. You can feed a dog in an animal shelter. Okay. Oh my God, is my roof leaking? There's water dripping. I wish I could show you the I wish I could show you with the camera. There's water dripping from the ceiling in my basement. That's pretty cool. I'm excited about that. Perks of being a homeowner. So I better scoot this monitor back, I think, so that a drop of water doesn't land just right in the right place. Cool. I'm glad that I get to work on that once the show's over. Haha. So more lies from the mainstream media about the good things that the government is doing. Now, trying to gather myself after discovering water dripping from the rafters in my basement. It's disturbing. It's alarming. Now, just going to focus on my notes and go with the hard segue. After the 2020 election, I believed that the election was fishy. And there were threats. I mean, this is unproven, but I felt like there were threats being made against judges and attorneys general and anyone else that had an issue with the election or would be responsible for potential investigation, that they were being threatened, and likely their families were being threatened, to get them to ignore the evidence and the affidavits and dismiss all the cases and do no investigations. I found it very alarming. And I interpreted the abuses of power by the winning administration as a pretty convincing indication that the enemies were in control. The patients were running the asylum. And I feel like we kind of saw the evidence of that. But now here it is in a pretty black and white example. I will share this with you, play this video, while I go figure out why water is leaking from my ceiling.
Mr. Roman, are you aware that we are sending $40 million a week to the Taliban?
Yes, sir.
Can you name other instances of foreign aid going to terrorist organizations?
We have assisted Al-Shabaab in Somalia. There's been instances of the Hamzi network in Sudan, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, Hezbollah, Kataib al-Hezbollah, Hayat Tahrir al-Shams in Syria. Dozens of terror organizations have received indirect assistance from U.S. foreign aid.
Could you elaborate a little bit on the mechanisms in place that are to stop foreign aid from going to terrorist groups, and why are they not working if we have any in place?
Sure.
And I would note that these are you notice these are terrorist weaponry. You see some AKs, SKSs, some snipers, some clips, some clip carriers, probably made in China. And I believe these are small landmines here beside right there.
Let's use Gaza as our case study. $2.1 billion in American taxpayers' money to Gaza since October 7th when Hamas invaded southern Israel. USAID money was going in terms of an emergency use authorization to try to go to parties that USAID formerly had a relationship with in the Gaza Strip. They had to have been vetted by OFAC. They should have been vetted against the special designated terror list from the State Department and from other Treasury organizations. Waivers were granted because they said that there was an emergency use to have that money come in to Gaza, thereby jettisoning the usual typical screening procedures. As a result, 90% of aid that was going from the United States by way of its agents in Gaza ended up in Hamas-controlled areas. And this is ridiculous. Essentially, what the U.S. assistance to Gaza did was underwrite the ability for Hamas to survive until the ceasefire was just passed a few weeks ago. There was no strategic thought for it, and there was no screening.
Seems like the emergency might have been armed terrorists to kill civilians. Would that be accurate?
That's accurate, and even more than that, Samantha Powers, the administrator for USAID, was intent on having Israel not be able to defend itself.
To not be able to defend it.
Correct.
Mr. Pramarak, is that correct? How do you say that? Pramarak? I got Burchett, man. Nobody gets mine right, so don't worry about it. What is it? Pramarak?
Perfect.
All right, thanks, brother. How did terrorists exploit our foreign aid loopholes?
Well, we have a lot of our international.
Can you pull your mic up? I'm sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
You have international NGOs and UN agencies actively lobby here in Washington, D.C. against vetting policies that would prevent it. I was the senior vetting officer at USAID, and what we did.
Did you say United Nations is doing this? The UN?
Sure, everybody who's getting money lobbies here.
That they're lobbying against us. I'm sorry, Mr. Roman.
There's actually someone who used to work for one of those lobbies, the largest NGO lobby, Interaction. One of our co-witnesses here worked for them from 2018 to 2023. USAID effectively self-funds its own external private lobby that then goes back to Congress and asks for more money for USAID.
So the taxpayers fund this lobbyist who's working against American interests.
Correct.
Possibly killing our allies and possibly Americans.
They bring together groups in Washington that overseas work with groups that kill Americans.
Yeah, I don't need a flow chart to show that. I appreciate it. Do you think USAID programs have been aligned with the national security interests of the U.S.?
No, they have not. They have actually helped China.
Mr. Roman?
No.
Okay. How do these programs compromise our national security, Mr. Pramarak?
They actually push China. They actually push much of the world towards China on the green energy agenda. They push people, ordinary people, billions of people towards China because of the resentment caused by our social re-engineering.
Are we being lobbied by these pro-communist China groups currently?
Well, a lot of these countries don't even have to lobby because they get the money anyway, like South Africa.
Yeah, and in fact, these lobbyists have come to the House and have tried to kill legislation like H.R. 160, which was meant to increase transparency in USAID's funding of overseas organizations.
Is that a current piece of legislation?
That's from the last session.
And give me that number again.
H.R. 160.
And what does it do?
It was meant to give U.S. lawmakers the ability to have higher transparency in terror financing investigations aimed at scrutinizing extremist groups.
Mr. Pramarak?
We had a regulation before we left in the last administration that anybody who touches money in countries where there's terrorists, those names have to go through databases, terrorist databases. That was overturned by Biden.
Overturned by Biden. Chair Lady, I am currently 5 seconds, but I wanted to mention something. There's a lot of rhetoric used on this committee, and I would urge my friends on both sides of the aisle, let's stick to the actual information. This rhetoric is, I've received death threats, and I know the chair lady has, and it needs to stop. We need to tone it down. Thank you, Chair Lady, and thank you.
So we have government agencies hiring lobbyists to lobby our governments to send away more of our tax dollars. We're using our taxes to rob ourselves of more taxes. And this is what the left wants to protect. They're willing to concoct all of these stories to make you believe that this is a bad thing. Make it make sense. They want you to think it's a terrible travesty of justice. And it really makes you wonder, or maybe it helps you stop wondering, how many government initiatives were used to launder money back to the politicians who sponsored them. I mean, think about all of the failed initiatives and agendas. The war on drugs. Do we have fewer people using drugs today than when the war on drugs began? No, we do not. The war on homelessness. Do we have fewer homeless people today when the war on homelessness began? No, we do not. The war on inequality. I mean, it's all starting to feel like the war in Afghanistan. We'll keep it going for years and years and years and years as long as we can get rich, right? As long as we're selling bullets and war machines and sending people's kids over there to die for nothing so that people can get rich. Now, I do feel a little bit guilty, as I may have mentioned, about the thousands of people that have lost their jobs or are losing their jobs because of Elon Musk and Doge, United States Digital Services, and what Donald Trump is doing to try and cut spending, stop the waste, the fraud, the abuse. It's still people that have to go find work elsewhere. It's still people's lives that are getting turned upside down. But I wonder, all of these people losing their jobs, all of this fraud and corruption uncovered, where were the whistleblowers? No one came forward? Now, granted, some people probably didn't have access to all of the information. We know the government heavily compartmentalizes people for this very reason, to keep them from seeing the big picture abuse that's happening. But I'm sure people had opportunities. And it's unfortunate that the ones that weren't involved are kind of caught in the crossfire. And we don't have the whole story. I'm sure if people can prove their innocence, they'll have an opportunity to go work somewhere else. I'm just wondering, like, what potentially would be the best way to go about saving yourself, or at least saving your career? Do you take the offer? Because there was an opportunity for a lot, I mean, all 2 million federal employees, right? To accept the Trump administration's offer of a resignation with 8 months pay and benefits to find a new job, to find a new position. I don't know that that would necessarily mean they were disqualified from government service ever after. It doesn't sound right. I want to believe that this administration cares about these people and wants to be fair, but I really don't know. I can't say. It's certainly the picture that they want to paint in the media, despite how the media dismisses anything good that they may have done. I think you got to speak up. If you suspect something is going on, you got to be a whistleblower because it's the right thing to do. I mean, this one was particularly disturbing when it comes to whistleblowers. Did you know Obama was paying himself royalties for things associated with Obamacare for 2.6 mil a year since 2010, amounting to almost $40 million. Nobody blew the whistle on that? Oh no. Oh no. Don't end up dead in his pond. I mean, it makes it more believable, right? You don't want to believe that these people are capable of this kind of thing, of killing the people, the whistleblowers. I mean, maybe that's why nobody blows the whistle on this stuff. They're afraid they're going to get Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama. That's decidedly worse than losing your job, I think. But the gutting of the government continues. The IRS is closing 120 offices across the United States, was just announced this week, with no specific offices mentioned except for 2 in Oregon. The office in Salem, Oregon, and Bend, Oregon will be closed. Those are the only 2 specific locations. The rest of the info is basically just saving on leasing costs. Unnamed office 1, annual lease cost of just over $1 million. Office 2, annual lease cost $70,000. Unnamed office 3, annual lease cost of $41,000. That must be a small office. It's really interesting to think about what the government will be like in 18 months when all of the cuts are over. Do you anticipate a real impact on your life? I mean, the media really wants you to believe that it's going to be fire and brimstone. But do you really believe it's going to be noticeably different? I mean, when the government shuts down and we go through that whole media circus of, oh no, the poor people that are going to be so put out with the closing of the, with a federal government shutdown. How long wasn't the federal government shut down for like 3 weeks under Donald Trump? Let's ask Grok. How long was the government shut down under Trump? It's working hard. During Donald Trump's first term as president, there were 3 government shutdowns. First from January 20th to the 22nd. The second was a brief shutdown on February 9th. I mean, why even mention that? And here was the big one, December 22nd, 2018 to January 25th, 2019. So yeah, about 3 weeks, 35 days, longer than 3 weeks. Did you even notice? Oh, yes. We all look back on those terribly trying 35 days and starting in 2018 when the federal government was shut down. Famine and violence and social decay was terrible for 35 days. No! I didn't notice a damn thing. I'm sure some people did. And I feel for them. Thoughts and prayers. I really do. I don't want people to not get paid. But I'm tired of paying more in taxes than I pay for anything else in my life. I mean, it's the single biggest bill that I pay every week, every month. Thousands of dollars a year. But then the federal government shuts down and we don't even notice. It makes it hard for me to feel sorry for the people losing their jobs. I don't want people to be put out. I don't want them to be harmed. I don't want their families to go hungry. But what's the saying? If you want to make an omelet, you got to break a few eggs. And I don't know, maybe you shouldn't be looking for a long-term career in government. Maybe the federal government shouldn't be your career destination goal. It's another problem. I mean, it's another symptom of a broken system, I guess. Because a lot of these people work their whole lives to be appointed as a judge for a term. I mean, I'm pretty sure that most appointment positions aren't lifetime. Do we ask Grok? We ask Grok, or do we move on? Let's move on. Because the point isn't how many lifetime appointment positions there are. The point is, you shouldn't be looking to go into government for a lifetime of service. There also shouldn't be public employee unions. I'm sorry, I'm a pro-union guy. But this is our tax money. And sometimes things happen. Sometimes politicians get out of control and start printing money like crazy and devaluing the dollar and destroying the economy. And we need to be able to say, okay, we got to stop this. Sorry, we got to fire all of you people. You're victims of poor leadership. And now you have to find employment opportunities elsewhere because we have to keep the country afloat. It's unfortunate. But these people, these cabinet members, all of these people that are going through these confirmation hearings and having their lives ruined because of all of the accusations that come out, they're only in there for a few years, maybe 8 years. Of course, they can be appointed and confirmed again by other presidents, but I don't think that's very common. And they're also subject to being fired by the same president that appointed them, like Pam Bondi is probably in really hot water because the first wave of Epstein documents being released were very lackluster. Pam Bondi, of course, Donald Trump's attorney general, was recently confirmed, went into work, and not surprisingly, the information contained in the documents was nothing very new. From the National Post headline, inside Pam Bondi's influencer cloak clusterfuck over the Epstein files at the White House today. We didn't get anything that we didn't already know, for the most part. And now the real work begins, I suppose. Because now Pam Bondi looks like a fool. The Donald Trump administration looks like fools. And I really wonder how Donald Trump is feeling about his decision to push Pam Bondi instead of Matt Gaetz. Although, would it have been different for Matt Gaetz in the same position, is the question. Now the rumors are swirling that the FBI was destroying evidence, that the files that they wanted to release that contained the client list, etc., have all been destroyed. The story, of course, is going to develop. But here's the bottom line. If we never get the Epstein client list from the Trump administration, it will be for the same reasons that we never got it under administrations past. The existence of this list, if it exists, still, if it still exists, only exists to facilitate the control of the people on that list. And if you release the list and everybody knows, well, now you lose control of the people that were on that list, of the people that you were blackmailing with threats of releasing the list. And I think that there's no better example of a controlled politician than Lindsey Graham. If you've been paying attention to the Trump saga and Lindsey Graham's involvement in the Trump saga, you know that he's hot and cold, like the Katy Perry song. Sometimes he's very surprisingly supportive of Trump and Trump's policies. And then when it came to things like Ukraine, he wanted to assassinate Putin. He made comments of regime change in Russia and supporting Zelensky. And then Zelensky comes to the Oval Office, which we're going to get into, by the way. And Lindsey Graham comes out and makes this crazy statement.
All right. So, what I think? Complete, utter disaster. I've been to Ukraine 8 or 9 times since the war started. I understand the consequences of Putin's actions against Ukraine. I appreciate what the Ukrainian people have done. They fought like tigers. At the end of the day, I was hoping that this minerals deal, which would be transformative in the relationship, would go over well. I talked to Zelensky this morning. Don't take the bait. President Trump was in a very good mood last night. Somebody asked me, am I embarrassed about Trump? I have never been more proud of the president. I was very proud of J.D. Vance standing up for our country. We want to be helpful. What I saw in the Oval Office was disrespectful, and I don't know if we can ever do business with Zelensky again. I think most Americans saw a guy that they would not want to go in business with. The way he handled the meeting, the way he confronted the president was just over the top. So I think the relationship between Ukraine and America is important, vitally important. But can Zelensky do a deal with the United States? After what I saw, I don't know.
What would he need to do, sir? Senator Graham.
You just had lunch with President Trump. What did he say to you about his interactions and whether he thinks
he was shocked? He was very upbeat. I told Zelensky, we'll talk about security guarantees. We'll talk about ceasefires and how the war ends. This is a process. You have a new relationship with America, a $500 billion, $500 billion deal that President Trump is proud of, that gives us an interest worth defending. Let's talk about the positive. But he was terrible at Munich, Zelensky, and I think he has made it almost impossible to sell to the American people that he's a good investment, that he is a good business.
Last question. Senator Graham. Hey, one at a time. One at a time. Christian Daytop. Senator Graham, thank you. Do you think President Zelensky needs to resign to resume?
Somebody phone
ringing. He either needs to resign and send somebody over that we can do business with, or he needs to change.
Thank you.
Now there are calls for Zelensky's resignation, Zelensky's impeachment, and it's not looking good. I mean, Zelensky embarrassed himself. I can't help but wonder who put Zelensky up to this. He did not have tact. He did not seem like a good negotiator. And people in the cabinet of Ukraine are calling for him to be impeached. To what end, I don't know. I mean, what do you think new leadership brings to Ukraine? Alexander Dubinsky, on March 1st, 2025, a controversial Ukrainian parliamentarian publicly demanded Zelensky's resignation and called for an emergency session of the Verkhovna Rada to initiate impeachment proceedings. He accused Zelensky of failing in foreign policy, driving Ukraine into crisis and mishandling relations with the U.S. after the Oval Office confrontation. All right. Without further ado, we're going to get into it. We're going to get into all the good. I can find the right link, damn it. What happened to it? Here it is. Somehow it got out of order. Gremlins. That's who did it. The thing I always got a good excuse.
What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of.
No, that's not the one. Damn it. Are you serious? Is it not? See, here's the thing. I'll just tell you right out the gate. I take notes on my phone. I have an iPhone, which I take notes. All week, all morning, all day long, all night. I'm taking notes for this show. Then I have it synced. I have the notes on my iPhone synced with my Mac computer. So when I pull up the notes on my computer, it's the same notes that I've been taking on my phone all week. And it has not been a foolproof solution. For example, all of the links that I was just going through this morning, for some reason, are out of order on the Notes app on my computer, out of order from what they were on my phone that I confirmed just this morning. So we'll listen to this and the rest that we have it will still accurately paint the picture of what happened in the Oval Office on, I believe it was on Friday.
What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you are
Mr.
not
President,
strong...
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come to the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the president for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Come once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military?
We have problems.
And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems. Even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless.
You don't
God
know that.
bless. You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because
I'm
you're in no
answering on
position
this
to
question.
dictate that.
That's
Remember
exactly
this.
what
I'm not
You're in
dictating.
no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very
You will
good.
feel influence.
We're going to feel
I'm-
very
I'm
good and
telling
very
you,
strong.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed
From the
yourself
very-
to be in a
from
very
the very
bad position,
beginning
and he
of the
happens
war.
to be right about
From
it.
the very beginning of the war.
You're not
Mr.
in a good
Brown,
position.
I
You don't
was
have
in-
the cards right now. With us, you start
I'm
having
not playing
cards. But
cards.
right now, you
I'm
don't.
very
Yeah, you're playing
serious,
cards.
Mr. President.
You're
I'm
playing
very
cards.
serious.
You're
I'm
gambling
the
with the
president
lives
in
of
war.
millions of people.
You think-
You're gambling with World War III.
What do you
You're
think about?
gambling with
What do you
World
think
War
about?
III. And
You-
what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country.
I'm
That's
with
back
all
to you.
respect to your
Far
country.
more than a lot of people said
I'm wearing
they
respect.
should have.
Have you said thank you once?
A lot of times.
No, in this
Even
entire meeting,
today.
you said thank
Even
you.
today.
You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
Please, you think that if you will speak very loudly about the war, you
He's
can
not
speak.
speaking loudly. He's not
Yeah.
speaking loudly. Your country's
Can I-
in big
can-
trouble.
Can I
Wait a
answer?
minute. No.
Can
You've
I
done a lot
answer?
of talking. Your country is in big trouble.
I know.
You're not
I
winning.
know.
You're not winning this. You have a damn good chance of
we are
coming out
staying,
okay because of
Mr.
us.
President, we are staying in our country, staying strong from the very beginning of the war. We've been alone, and we are thankful. I said thanks
You haven't
in
been
this
alone.
cabinet,
You
and
haven't
not
been
only
alone.
in this
We
cabinet.
gave you, through
I
this
said
stupid
thank you.
president, $350 billion.
You voted
We gave
for
you
your
military
president.
equipment,
You
and you
voted
men
for
are
your
brave,
president.
but they had to use our military.
What about
If you didn't have
You
our
invited
military
me.
equipment,
You invited
if
me
you
to
didn't
speak.
have our military equipment, this war would have been over in 2 weeks.
In 3
okay?
days, I heard it from Putin. In 3 days, this is something
Maybe
new.
less.
In 2 weeks, of course, yes.
It's going to be a very hard thing to do business like this. I tell you.
Just say thank you.
I said a lot of
Except
times
that
thank
there-
you
except
to
that-
American people.
Except that there are disagreements, and let's go litigate those disagreements rather than trying to fight it out in the American media when you're wrong. We know that you're wrong.
But you see, I think it's good for the American people to see what's going on.
It sure is.
I think it's very important. That's why I kept this going so long. You have to be thankful. You don't have the
I'm
cards.
thankful.
You're buried there. Your people are dying.
tell you
You're
again,
running
I
low
know.
on soldiers.
Don't-
Listen,
don't, please,
you're running
Mr.
low on
President.
soldiers. It would be a damn good thing.
Mr.
And then
President.
then you tell us, I don't want a ceasefire. I don't want a ceasefire. I want to go and I want this. Look, if you could get a ceasefire right now, I tell you, you take it so the bullets stop flying and your men stop getting killed.
Of course, we want to stop the war.
But you're saying you don't want a
But I
ceasefire.
said to you,
I want a
with
ceasefire
guarantees.
because you'll get a ceasefire faster than an agreement.
Ask our people about ceasefire, what they think.
That
It
wasn't
doesn't
with
matter
me.
for you what.
That
what
wasn't
this
with me.
means. It
That was
wasn't
with
you.
a guy named Biden who was not a smart person.
This
That
is
was
your,
with,
this
that was
is
with
your
Obama.
president. It was your president.
Excuse me. That was with Obama, who gave you sheets, and I gave you javelins.
Yes.
I gave you the javelins to take out
Javelin
all
missiles.
those tanks. Obama gave you sheets. In fact, the statement is Obama gave sheets and Trump gave javelins. You got to be more thankful because let me tell you, you don't have the cards. With us, you have the cards. But without us, you don't have any cards.
Interesting that Donald Trump was impeached for not giving enough for what threatening to withhold aid based on potential corruption. Just keep the highlights rolling.
I hope I'm going to be remembered as a peacemaker. This would be a great thing if we could do this. I'm doing this to save lives more than anything else. Second is to save a lot of money, but I consider that to be far less important. So I hope I'm going to thank you, Brian, for that question. It was a nice question. I hope I'll be known and recognized as a peacemaker. This would be a great thing to solve. This is a very dangerous situation. You know, this could lead to a third world war. This was headed in the wrong direction. If this election were lost, if we didn't win this election, and by the way, we won it by a lot. That was a mandate. We won every swing state. We won the popular vote by millions and millions of votes. We won everything. The districts, you look at the areas of red, take a look at a map. This was a big mandate. And this is one of the things I said, we're going to get this thing settled. If we didn't win, I think this could have very well ended up in a third world war.
It was a mandate for everything. The government waste, the sending of the billions of dollars to Ukraine. It's unfortunate. Okay, it really is that Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine and took these territories. Now he doesn't want to give them back. He's probably not going to give them back. I don't know if Donald Trump can make him give those territories back. But Zelensky wants them back. So what's the answer? Now, here's a little clip for the viewers on YouTube X and Twitch. This is the shoulder push that you may not have heard about. That people, I mean, really not really unserious politicians that people seem to believe and trust, unfortunately, are calling and assault.
$350 billion. We gave you military equipment, and your men are brave, but they had to use our military. If you didn't have our military equipment,
Little push.
if you didn't have 300
Little push there. It was heated. I mean, does the content get any better than that? Holy crap. Trump and Zelensky shouting. I mean, maybe shouting is a little bit of an exaggeration. But that was great. This was an ungrateful Zelensky. Why? I mean, why? Really, why? Why do you come into the Oval Office and speak like that to JD Vance? He called him JD and not Mr. Vice President. He's wearing his tracksuit or whatever the hell he wears everywhere he goes. Definitely a statement. Definitely some kind of signal, for the same reason that, like, Mark Cuban wears board shorts and flip-flops everywhere, and John Fetterman, the Pennsylvania senator, is always wearing a hoodie and basketball shorts. Or what? That we're just employees. We're no one to be idolized or revered. We're just whatever. It's like what the pharmaceutical manufacturers want to do to the healthcare industry. They want hospitals to be mostly staffed with nurses that just write prescriptions, because that's what the pharmaceutical industry wants. And the healthcare industry, of course, being the largest industry on the planet, has the most money, has the most influence, is very capable of turning our healthcare industry, which it seems they've already pretty successfully done, into a pill farm. You show up, this hurts, here's a pill, thank you, pay up. And that's the end. I was really hoping I'd have something to cover about what RFK has been doing with his Make America Healthy Again initiative. Unfortunately, I haven't seen anything. Last clip of the day before we wrap up. A little comedy, a little jab from Donald Trump against poor President Zelensky as he shows up to the Oval Office to meet Donald Trump for the first time.
He's all dressed up today.
So if you've seen the videos, it's not that he doesn't look nice. He just looks under. He looks under. You know what he looks like? He looks like the 23-year-old kid that's been moved out of the house for a couple of years and then shows up to Thanksgiving dinner after being largely absent from family functions. I'm sure that sounds familiar to some of you listening. Like, he made a little bit of an effort, but you can tell that he was up really late drinking the night before because he doesn't have to go to work the next day. So he's just kind of living his best life. And it just happens he's gonna show up to the White House to ask Daddy Trump for a little cash infusion. Unfortunately, he's kind of, a little bit of a spoiled bitch, I don't mind saying. And so, regretfully, or not regretfully, I don't know, he's going to get what he gets. And I think he kind of deserves it. Like, what are you thinking? What are you thinking going in there like that? Telling JD Vance that he needs to come. You got to come to Ukraine, or you don't know what you're talking about in terms of what's going. No. Excuse me, Mr. Zelensky, JD Vance is 4 times the leader that you will ever be. I mean, this guy was installed. You must see that by now. This guy is a puppet. How many more puppet leaders do we have in countries around the world installed by our own intelligence agencies? I'm sure we'll just have to find out in the coming future. But thank you all very much for listening. Please follow me on X at earthvox. Like, share, subscribe, and follow on your favorite platform. We've got an audio version as well on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and Podbean and Overcast and all the other audio-only podcast platforms. Send me a voicemail, 701-787-1121. Send me an email, therealearthvox@protonmail.com. Let me know what you think. Ask me for an invite to that Discord channel. And we'll talk. Maybe have you on for a discussion about any topics that are tickling your brain. Thank you again for tuning in. I'll be back next week. I'm shooting for, from now on, 11 a.m.-ish on Sundays to be the stream time. If you want to check in and catch the live stream, I'd appreciate it. Unfortunately, I won't be very interactive because I got a whole show to run, which is why it's best to send that email to therealearthvox@protonmail.com. I'll be back.